Well, hello, friends. My name is Brian Foley from Valley Variety in Phoenix, Arizona, vvphx.com. My live stream tonight got interrupted by some internet issues. It could be the heat. It could be that we're in a high traffic time. I'm not sure. But I wanted to get some of this material up on the internet so that I can at least deliver what I promised for tonight. And I will figure things out before next week. So, I'm beginning tonight with a comic Lazzo. Lazzo, as defined by Mel Gordon in his amazing book, Lazzi, for the fourth time tonight, is Lazzi refers to comic routines that were planned or unplanned and that could be performed in any one of dozens of plays. Put another way, Lazzi allude to any discrete or independent comic and repeatable activity that guaranteed laughs for its participants. So, clowns do things with hats. Clowns have done things with hats all the time. One of my favorite things to do is to gluttonously eat imaginary popcorn out of my hat when something interesting is going on. And I find people find that interesting, and sometimes I can make that funny. Well, Lazzo, to me, means that it is a comic, repeatable bit that exists independent of character, independent of plot, and can be essentially tossed in. So tonight's Lazzo being singular, will be the Lazzo of not staying put. The Lazzo of not staying put has some precedence in the Commedia dell'arte and most likely in Roman comedy as well. Why do I think this? Well, there are a couple things. There are some Lazzi, as listed by Mel Gordon, that are similar. Catherine Lay in Italian, what's the name of this text? Italian Popular Comedy by K.M. Lee, L-E-A, or Catherine Lee, describes some elements of this routine almost exactly. And it's also super simple. So there's no reason why it wouldn't be. The other reason is it's incredibly lateral, right? This works really, really well on a small platform trestle stage. It does not, you can make this work in a circus ring, absolutely. But it is very lateral. So we want to maybe think about, here's where this comes from. What would this look like if this were performed by Commedia characters? What characters would be performing this, okay? So here's what it is. First, we need to talk about status. The way I learned this, it was called boss and dummy. The reason it was called boss and dummy is because it's a way to explore status. So I've got bananas here, which are made out of foam. Thank you, Greg DeSanto, for sending me these. But we'll talk, I'll use my foam broccoli and my foam banana tonight to have a high status character and a low status character. So, your high status character, one way to talk about a classic high status character in partner comedy, right? You have your straight man and your comic, right? But the straight man, or straight character, the high status character, I'm trying to remove gender out of this. So straight man, I'm trying to remove it. Let's talk about this, right? So in the circus, you'd have your white-faced clown and your Auguste clown. In Commedia, you would have maybe a pantalone or an infarinato, which is a white-faced, non-masked character, and a Zani character who would be masked. In Commedia dell'arte, there is evidence to suggest that Arlecchino, if you look at the shape of the nose in Arlecchino and the texture of the hair that exists from these masks, that's on the old masks, that this was a sub-Saharan African character. This is a black character. And your Infarinato is going to contrast that by being the highest status servant character who gets to sleep indoors, who powders their face white. If you go to the beginnings of French circus, you have Foutit et Chocolat. Chocolat, the black man, black clown. Foutit, white man, powdered his face as a white-faced character and beat this black performer, right? The tradition for many, many years is a masculine tradition, is a male tradition, but there's no reason that it has to be. So when we talk about status, we can talk about high status or low status, but we can also, one other thing we can do is we can say number 1 and number 2. When we get into trios, we can say number 1, number 2, number 3, right? I'm not trying to clean out the history. I'm just trying to expand the history and say, let's talk about the history, but maybe now it's better to have new vocabulary for it, right? So if you have a high status character, one way to approach this high status character is through the lens of ego, an unhealthy ego. No superego. Of course, superego is the understanding that you live in a society. It is recognizing your place in the world. An unhealthy ego means that you don't have that superego and you're only thinking about yourself and what you want, right? Another way to think about it is, we used to say, oh man, you're messing up my chi, I just feng shui'd the back deck and you're messing everything up, right? So maybe this character's sensibilities are very, very delicate and it doesn't take much to set them off. They have a very specific vision for what the world is and what the world must be, and this character doesn't allow for that because this character is led by the id. The id is not the ego. The id in human development comes before the development of the ego, before you recognize yourself as an individual. So this character is the animalistic character. And when you perform this, it's very good to really be thinking about animals. If you look at a character like Bert Lahr, a comic like Bert Lahr, right, making these animal sounds, really just, we're learning how to be extra human here. We're really pushing the boundaries of what it is to be human. Maybe delving into animal territory, monster territory, right? The stuff that this grows out of, really, Greek theater in the Western tradition is gods and monsters and huge tragedy and masks and stilts and color and dance. This stuff was not shy. This was not naturalistic. This predates naturalism. It predates realism. It predates the invention of the fourth wall. So, status. There's a boss and there's a dummy. There's a number 1 and a number 2. Here's what this piece is in its essence, all right? I'm going to get much more into detail, but here's the basic structure. You stay here. Don't move. Okay, I'll stay here. I won't move. Ah! Grabs him and pulls the dummy back to 1. Repeat. I told you to stay here and don't move. Oh, yes, I'll stay here and don't move. Pull, 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 pull. Third time it changes a little bit. Shocker, right? So, stay here. Don't move. Oh, you want me to stay here? Okay, I'll stay here. Fine. Check. Angel. Step, step, step. Check. Angel. Step, step, step. Catch up, catch up, catch up, catch up, catch up. And up. Where'd he go? Ha ha! Wait! And he takes his hand and he pulls himself back. Just like this. All right? So, this is the first video. We talked about Lazzo and Lazzi. We talked about status differentials, and I talked about just the basic structure of the piece. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the rule of 3. I'm going to talk about some of the techniques like repeating text, tossing the plate up as a metaphor. I'm reading my notes backwards. Shadowing, burlesquing, playing the game for the audience, and instant theater escalation, stage combat, and some questions that I would ask when revamping this for the 21st century. Here we go. Watch the next video. Thank you.